GM, GA, GE, wherever you may be. Today we have Mooncats on. They are one of the OG projects on the Ethereum blockchain, so it should be fun to hear a little more about their story. Welcome. So, as mentioned, today we're going to be talking about the Mooncats. We have Midnight Lightning and Paws from Mooncats team. So, let's start off with you, Midnight. We'll just go sort of around the corner there. Tell us a little about how you're connected to Mooncats.
Sure. So yes, I'm Midnight Lightning on the Discord and around the internets. I'm Brooks. I've been a blockchain developer. I first got into the blockchain and cryptocurrency space back in 2012 with Bitcoin and working as a developer on some of the altcoin implementations and people who are wanting to redevelop the L1 sorts of chains back in that time. I first heard of the Mooncat Rescue project. I was not one of the original developers, but one of the first users of it. Day 5 of that project back in August of 2017, I rescued my first Mooncat. It intrigued me as a project as one of the first digital collectibles being launched in the time that before the term NFT was a thing, that it was just a digital collectible art piece with some unique technical implementations to it, which intrigued me. And so, yes, I got involved with the project at that time. It then didn't catch on as a popular project at that time, but then in the NFT summer of 2021, it became a rediscovered project. And at that time, I actually did join the Ponderware team as a developer to help continue the saga, and have now been over the past year working on adding to that ecosystem and enjoying being part of it.
Cool. And yeah, how about you, Paz?
Hey, I'm Anna Marie. I'm the community manager at Mooncats. Brooks was the third person to join the Mooncats team, and I was the fourth. We've known each other for, a decade at this point. And many, many years ago, I made the joke to him that if he ever needed a community manager, he should shoot me a message because I spent 15 years as a community manager and social media coordinator in the games industry. And so, a year ago at this point, he messaged me and said, "Hey, you know how you made that joke? I actually do need a community manager now. What do you know about NFTs?" And
Wow.
so that's how I came on board with Mooncats.
Cool. Yeah. And so I guess let's talk a little about that because obviously this project really started back in 2017, but then last year it was, and I remember that day as well because I was trying to rescue some cats and I had somewhere I was supposed to go and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to come back and there would be any left. So tell us a little about, like, from your side of it, Midnight Lightning, how that day, week or so sort of went when people rediscovered this project.
Sure. And so, yeah, that day, which was, yeah, March 12th back of last year, 2021, piece of it there. So, like, yeah, the lead up to that was the project itself had not minted out. That, yeah, it launched in 2017, and there were the collection is large by most standards of the other NFT collections out there. The Mooncat collection was designed at over 25,000 assets, and by 2021, only I think it was about like 2/5 of it or so had minted out. There was still plenty that
5,100.
yeah, there was still plenty that had been unrescued at that point. And at that point, I had also sort of moved on to other projects of realizing, yeah, it hadn't been, as popular of a project. And so I was also not paying as close attention to the crypto Twitter feeds of that Friday night. In the matter of hours that it went by, I actually did not notice it during the time of the re-rescuing. One of my other contacts that I had pinged me after the fact that after the mint was minted out, or rather after the collection was completed, to say of, oh, this thing that you that you worked on, did you notice that it got re-noticed? And I said no, and then I tuned back in, and so for me it was that weekend. So the day after was when I found there was now a community. They had started a Discord, and I jumped into the Discord and started answering technical questions from my perspective as a developer, and being able to help people understand this thing that for a lot of them, yes, they had rushed into realizing time was of the essence, and now we're starting to more fully appreciate what they had. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of that weekend basically doing education pieces of like, what is it? And also because I had been doing the technical things back in 2017, one of the key things I had done as a developer was write a technical write up as, at that point, a third party perspective of, hey, here's what this contract is. As we've seen now in the modern age, yeah, some of the people on Twitter take their perspective of, here, we're going to analyze other people's works and like, vouch for it of, hey, this looks good, this looks bad. That was essentially what I had done back in 2017 of, hey, I'm just another developer. I didn't work on this code, but here, let me analyze it for you and trust as a third party opinion. And because of that, the original developers knew of me and noticed me. And so then when the rediscovery happened, I was able to get in contact with them and let them know that it had been noticed. So I was part of the link of getting them into the Discord to be able to notice as well, and connect all the dots for that piece. So for me, that weekend was a lot of education and reconnecting with people, and figuring out, yeah, what needed to change for the next week. Because at that point, yes, I still had a standard Web 2.0 day job, um, and needing to figure out what needed to change now that this thing had happened. What did it actually mean as a rediscovery?
And it was sort of an interesting weekend because neither of the two original founders of Mooncat Rescue had a Discord account. Neither of them had a Twitter account. So they had no idea what was going on. And eventually, one of the community members, ETH Horde, found Jerfel's day job and basically called his boss at the law firm that he was working at and was like, hey, do you have a guy who used to make NFTs working at your job? And the boss was like so confused.
Yeah, and
But
so
yeah, definitely.
were you already part of like how quickly after were you part of this pause? Was it after they were all minted out?
Yeah. So let me think. So it was March 12th that the rediscovery happened and the community sort of exploded from there. And I think 3 weeks later, Brooks, you came onto the team. And
Mhm.
about 3 weeks after that, you messaged me and said, hey, are you interested in applying for this job that we have? There's this NFT, it's really old, and none of us know how to manage a community. Would you be interested in applying?
Cool. Yeah, and so now it got rediscovered, and it was the big talk of the town on Twitter because people are trying to figure out, oh, is this actually from 2017? How does this work? People are talking about, one of our friends of the show, Andy 8052, is talking about how many of these cats he rescued, and it was sort of just like everyone was talking about Mooncats for that week because people were at that point in time still trying to find these older NFTs.
Right.
So why do you think that people really found with Mooncats this sort of the historical value of it was pretty high on this one compared to some others that maybe came out in 2018 or 2019?
Well, I think it was really interesting that Mooncats was the start of sort of like this historical NFT renaissance where it wasn't the first real historical project to be discovered, but it definitely felt like one of the earliest ones at the time. And one of the ones that could be very quickly spun up and okay, we can actually go in and actively mint these things because even though the Mooncat Rescue website had sort of seen some degradation, it was still up, but it wasn't working very well. You could go to the contract, and Justin and OX Allen both tweeted out instructions for how to do this. And they were really easy to follow. People were able to understand how to do it. And so, like that learning experience for a lot of people, it was their first NFT. It was the first time they manually interacted with a contract. And so that was a novelty because by the time March 2021 rolled around, if you wanted to mint an NFT, you went to a website, you clicked on a button, here's your NFT. There was nothing like Mooncats.
Yeah, that's as Play Nice is mentioning here. He's saying that it was the first time interacting with the smart contract directly, and it changed his life
Yay!
for the
Play
better.
nice, lesson
So,
3.
yeah, I think a lot of people had that experience though, where and now today, like being able to mint from a contract can save you time. It can save you some gas fees as well,
Mhm.
and just being able to see sort of that back end. So, one
Yeah,
other
that the
thing.
a key
Yep, go
piece of
ahead.
knowing that, yeah, part of the what intrigued me when I minted, back in 2017 was also like, yeah, that technical implementation of that Mooncats as a collection were also trying to teach you a little bit about how blockchain infrastructure works. And the original website laid into that piece of you needed to search for the Mooncat, and the website helped you do that search action, which was a direct parallel to the proof of work algorithm that's being used. And indeed, when you're working with the contract directly, you still needed to figure out it wasn't just hit the button to activate a specific function. You needed to give it a proper input that validated certain requirements in order to be a valid input. And so a little bit of knowledge there of how do you actually fulfill this algorithm, but also knowing that blockchains are open and being able to know where to go to even look under the hood of, yeah, teaching people those skills of the same way that everyone should know at least how to pop the hood on their car to see, like where do you even go to look inside your car? That you should be able to know how do you even go look at the inner workings of the contract, even if you're not a developer, like even to go to where's the correct location to even see what the actual inputs are for it. And yeah, I love the fact that that has been a key part of the contract or the collection as a whole, and that can then be carried forward for how people interact with collections in the future after working with Mooncats.
Yeah, and one thing we were talking about before we hopped on was sort of this idea of that's one thing that separates Mooncats from other projects. So I know one part of this whole thing for Mooncats was not changing anything, not making a new contract that was, say, like more up to date, not making a new website that was more up to date. Can you walk us through a little of that side of the process while keeping that sort of authentic style to it?
Sure. And that, yeah, it echoes back to the teaching what is on chain and what the blockchain can do. The contracts that are part of the Mooncat Rescue ecosystem have all been made in a way that is not a proxy contract or upgradable sorts of contracts. In that a lot of the ethos of how these projects are being or how these applications are being made within the Mooncat ecosystem are that they are on chain and therefore should be able to exist, and that you should be able to trust that they will exist and won't change either intentionally or maliciously or by a bad actor or by best of intentions but a mistake into the future. And so having it be using that infrastructure of the blockchain to be as permanent as possible and rely on that feature of blockchain to be permanent into the future has been a key part of what has been built for Mooncats. In that a lot of the ecosystem does have some administrative controls that Ponderware has been in control of at this point, but they're mostly very minimal things of like, is it an emergency pause or is it a needs the indication to launch it in the first place, but then once it's launched, it's set to go piece of it. And so these contracts, yes, are we publish our source on the various contracts so that people can investigate them. We try to do as much as we can on chain, and even in the places where the original contract didn't have all of the metadata on chain, we went back and added that. That was one of our projects over the past year, was adding in even more ways to see more clearly the Mooncat traits explicitly on chain as opposed to implicitly as part of it.
Yeah. And so, and now from Paws on your side, on the community aspect of it, now we're, a year later,
Right.
and it seems like Mooncats is still, and I want this to sound the wrong way, but it's still a thing. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
of projects that have come and gone, and people still are talking about Mooncats. So what is separating the community of Mooncats and keeping them going? Because there's around 6,000 unique holders or so of the original Mooncat. So how on the community side are you seeing people connected to Mooncats?
For sure. I think it's kind of a mixed bag. It's a variety of things of, as people went through 2021 and started really looking deeply into historical projects, there is maybe an estimated 20 projects that launched in 2017. And not even all of those projects are accessible anymore. Some of them, they just don't have any way of interacting with them anymore, or they've been abandoned by developers that like there's no way to continue on without them. So just kind of understanding how few projects really came out of that 2017 era has really energized people to be like, all right, my Mooncats are from 2017. And that is a really important statement for me. Two, I think for so many people that that experience of Mooncats were my first NFTs. I'm never going to let them go. You know, I have diamond paws. I'm hanging on to my Mooncat forever. That has really fostered like such a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Like if you come into our Discord and you have a question about Mooncats, there is always someone there who is going to, you know, be there to welcome you, to walk you through buying your first Mooncat, you know, going over your choices with you, because Mooncats can kind of be a little bit challenging to get into compared to some other NFTs. Like for most of the sort of typical 10K PFP collections, you have a list of 10,000 NFTs. That was the set of 10,000 NFTs that was going to be minted, and there was a set rarity for them before anybody ever minted a single one. But with Mooncats, there were 4 billion potential Mooncats, of which around 25,000 were minted. And so no one knew what the rarity of the collection was going to look like before everything minted out in March of 2021. So there's no real simple way to point at a Mooncat and go, I see visually distinctly why that Mooncat is more rare, with the exception of the Genesis Mooncats, which are the only black and white cats in the collection.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
and it's
yeah,
worth noting that
go ahead.
distinction of, yeah, with the Mooncats of, like, what we term rare, of, like, yeah, breaking it down into actually, is it scarce, and is it desirable, and is it valuable? Because like, you can't just say rare, and you need to give a little bit more connotation of what do you mean with a Mooncat, of the things that are scarce may be scarce because they intentionally weren't minted that way by the community when they were rescuing them. The things that people liked, and for as much as people curated as they were rescuing, there might be more of the things that are slightly more desirable, but then therefore they're less scarce, but they're more desirable. And so it's an interesting duality.
Mm. Yeah, and then there's also the side of it, which I was hoping you could add a little more on, as far as the accessorized Mooncats, and then there's also the wrapped Mooncats. So could you just give a little bit on the difference in how to accessorize your Mooncat?
Do you want to go over the ERC 20 and then I can jump in with accessories?
For sure. ERC
Sure.
721. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I can cover, yeah. So the wrapped one. So the answer to that is the technical piece, which is ERC 721. So the answer to that is in 2017 when Mooncats were created, as I mentioned, like the term NFT had not really been standardized, and what now the common phrase NFT. When people say NFT, what they really mean usually is an asset that adheres to the ERC 721 standard. That there is a technical standard, it has a number, which then the developers are responsible for implementing. There's a few others that have been now derivatives of that, ERC 1155 and the 721A and a couple of the others. But the core piece that usually defines what is an NFT is ERC 721. ERC 721 as a standard was not finalized in 2017. It was finalized later. So the original Mooncat Rescue Project contract does not adhere to that standard. It adheres to an earlier standard, the fungible one, ERC 20, and is a ERC 20-ish sort of a token. Now my real life cat is wanting to be part of the action here.
Hi,
um,
Ivy.
and so the original contract doesn't adhere to that standard. And so it needs to be transformed in a way to get compliant to that standard. The original wrapper was created by a community member to quickly make it compliant, and then the Ponderware team did come through and made a more robust wrapper a few months after the rediscovery to make sure that it was as future-proof as possible. The original, what's now termed the wrapped Mooncats or the old wrapper, was one that was made quickly by a community member. It is solid and it is, a real Mooncat. However, some of the metadata and some of the numbering doesn't come through as appropriately. And so, yes, the Ponderware team created a brand new wrapper to help solve some of those problems.
And that happened like pretty quickly after, correct? Um, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they were on OpenSea right away. Is that
Right.
right?
Correct. They can't be
Yeah.
because the whole point of OpenSea is OpenSea as a company. They say, oh, yeah, we will present anything that is an NFT. So anything that adheres to that ERC 721 standard, they can their code only assumes that lowest common denominator. And because the original Mooncat contract does not adhere to even that lowest common denominator, they couldn't, be aware of it. And that's also why, if you look at the OpenSea perspective of when you go to the Mooncats collection there, you'll see indications of, oh, this particular token was minted at a certain date, and that date is much later than 2017. And that's actually because that's the moment that OpenSea became aware of it. And it's the moment that it became that new token, that it became wrapped. OpenSea calls it minting it because it can't see anything prior to that point that it became standards compliant. We know, and we can show the tooling to help you find it out of where did that Mooncat exist prior to becoming visible to OpenSea. It's just the sort of naming on OpenSea then becomes a little bit of an issue that you have to take it with a grain of salt of as far as OpenSea knows, this was the moment that it sprung into existence. But OpenSea doesn't know that there is a whole backstory for that particular asset.
And one of the things that I love about the community is our community is really dedicated to building things inside of Mooncats to help people either better understand or better use their Mooncats. And so one of the first tools that came out of the community was a website called mooncat.pro. And if you go to mooncat.pro and look up your Mooncat, you can see a ton of information about it. When it was rescued, the block that it was on, the specific time, if it was named, because Mooncats can only be named once and it is that name forever. It tells you whether the loot print that's associated with the Mooncat is available or if it was lost to the ether of space forever. Loot prints was our sort of first derivative after Mooncats, where loot prints are spaceship plans for Mooncats to use spaceships with. And that will be a key piece to use in our upcoming Gravball game, as well as further down the line in the deep space exploration.
Cool. And then how can someone accessorize their Mooncat? Is it only for certain Mooncats, or can any be accessorized?
Any acclimated Mooncat, so any Mooncat in the official wrapper can be accessorized. And in fact, I am actually wearing the official Mooncat Zero shirt, where Zero is wearing his official Ponderwear visor, as well as his spiffy mech too. And so
All right, to
only
clarify for those who didn't know, Mooncat Zero, yeah, the first Mooncat rescued, officially number 0 in the collection, who
yeah,
has his own Twitter account if you
he
wish to follow him
does.
along as well.
Yep. And so any of these acclimated Mooncats can go to boutique.mooncat.community or just mooncat.community and click on boutique in the exploration bar. And the boutique is the place where anybody, whether they own a Mooncat or not, can design and publish an accessory on chain. And then any owner of a Mooncat can go to the boutique and be like, all right, I really like this mustache. I really like this top hat. This cane is super dapper. I'm going to combine together all of these accessories on my Mooncat. And some accessories are free, some accessories are paid, and the artist gets paid when you buy those accessories. And then there are some accessories that you either have to have done something or have completed or be eligible for it in some special fashion. So, for example, there is a special banner that we made for Mooncats that is only available for 2017 Mooncats. And right around the anniversary of the Rediscovery in March, we made what we called the Rediscovery Rocket Ride, which is sort of like, those like cheesy quarter toys that you put kids on in front of the grocery stores. We made one of those, and only Mooncats rescued in 2021 were eligible for that particular accessory. The visor that Mooncat Zero wears, only Ponderwear staff members get with the exception of Zero because he stole his.
Oh wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize they were set up that way.
Yep.
Where certain rarities from that in a way as well.
Yep.
And it's also,
And
and those rarities are set by the designer of the accessory piece of it. So yeah, there
oh
are a
yeah,
few accessories created by Ponderwear, and the Ponderwear visor is one of those piece of it. And then yeah, the other, if you wish to become an accessory designer, then you get to pick. Yeah, how many do you wish, and who's eligible to do so to
right.
actually be part of the narrative yourself.
And so, for example, Brooks is wearing his Mooncat accessory, which it has a helicopter on. Those helicopters are actually completely sold out. So you can no longer go to the boutique and purchase one for your Mooncat. If you really have a hankering for that helicopter accessory, you're going to have to find a Mooncat on the secondary market that owns one already and buy it.
Cool. Yeah, and it's cool to see that it's community driven basically, and it's the artwork from the community as well, and they can set the limitations, and then I'm sure there's some like sub communities of people, like everyone that has a helicopter or the visor. Um,
Yep.
and then
Mechs unite. There
do
is
you
a
have a
big
Mac on
movement.
yours?
Yeah, I actually have this huge three-headed Ghidorah mech
Oh,
for my profile picture in Mooncat. So, if you go to pawsrpg.eth, which is my ENS domain, you can actually see my awesome Mooncat in her giant Ghidorah mech and wearing the Ponderwear visor.
yeah, and you also mentioned the loot prints and sort of. I guess we could get into what's coming in the future, but talk a little about the loot prints and how they're going to connect into these future plans.
Sure. And so the loot prints were launched. I get reference my dates back here. September 2021 was a piece there. It was right around the time of the loot for adventurers was also a thing that had captured people's attention, and we wanted to do something more specific for Mooncats for that. But then also in our way of making sure that it would be in an innovative way tying into our future development pieces. We did launch this project as a additional thing that Mooncats could claim. And so it was a derivative work, or rather an airdrop or a claimable, that individual acclimated Mooncats could claim the loot print, the blueprint for the spaceship that is related to them. And so for each Mooncat, when they claimed their spaceship plans, it was somewhat based on the Mooncat that it was associated with, the same identifier, as it was the color on the opposite side of the color wheel from that Mooncat. The determination of the color of the loot print is determined by the Mooncat that created it, and that only acclimated Mooncats could create them. And we had the minting window as only open for a certain amount of time, which has closed now. And so it was a limited supply, and so now it is actually at a much smaller collection size than the Mooncat collection itself. But then we are planning to use that particular asset going forward as the representation for that Mooncat, the ship that they can pilot into future things. The next thing that we're working on is more of a fun game piece, which we've called Gravball, which we've done some releases of some of the features we're expecting for that. Um, and have been working on that for a bit and will continue to do so. The far reaching plans for that, we have a couple other application ideas for it, as we've given the code name Deep Space, which is a far reaching goal at this point, but that we continue to plan to utilize these things. The blueprints themselves, our plans are to eventually turn them into the actual ships themselves. We've also been using these as a way to explore different L2 opportunities that it maybe of the ships themselves are what fly to the L2s to represent the Mooncat there, exploring different ways that we can ensure that the Mooncat assets themselves stay safe, but also be able to utilize the features of some of the L2s is some of the technical underpinnings that we're utilizing as we're exploring this.
Yeah, that makes sense because like it seems that's been somewhat of the hot topic the last few months on there's only so much that Ethereum can handle and people are starting to look into L2s and obviously like this past weekend with that Yuga drop it showed there's a lot of issues with Ethereum mainnet in general and which ones have you guys been looking into, is it Polygon or
We've been
something like
investigating
Mooncats?
several. So yeah, Polygon has been a research topic, looking into Gnosis, looking into Arbitrum, and looking into some of the other chains, or even some of the cross-chain bridge ideas like Layer Zero as a project, or Nitro. I believe is the other one that's looking to just be in general cross-chain pieces there. And as the Ponderware team, as I mentioned, like the way that we've been structuring our contracts is the with an eye towards the extreme long-term future, that we want to make sure that nothing would be dependent upon other teams, or either Ponderware or other teams specifically, that a lot of the L2 implementations, you're dependent on the bridge itself to get there, and or the validators or nodes that are running the L2. And so a lot of our research has been going into the what is the robustness of the L2, what is their, you know, what are their plans for catastrophic failure of, or what are the weak points of those individual L2s, or and the possibility of making sure that if we do make a bridge to an L2 and the L2 has a major issue, that on L1 people can still get their assets back, that the Mooncats would not just be lost forever into a bridge contract piece of it there. And so that are some of the ramifications we're looking at, and why we are not just jumping rapidly into it, but looking for a solution that would be for the extreme long-term future that we know would be as robust as possible.
Yeah, this project's been around for 5 years now, so it's kind of crazy to use a number that's that high. It doesn't sound that high, but obviously, like, a lot of these projects are barely even a year old at this point. So, do you think that having that longevity allows you to be able to have a little more wiggle room when doing something like that, and being able to, you already have a community that most of the people have probably held for about a year at this point, at least. So, do you think that that helps? Because a lot of people in NFTs are super impatient, and um, it that's what's killed a lot of some of these other projects. So, do you think that just the community itself, are they helping with this? Are there sort of some people that are specifically leaders in the community, or is it just sort of like every man for himself, and they're throwing out ideas? Like, is there specific parts? Like, you guys don't have a DAO, right? Is it all communicated through the Discord?
So there is a DAO for Mooncat Pop. And in order, Mooncat Pop is sort of the lower price entry system for getting into the Mooncats ecosystem. And so buying a Mooncat Pop is about the 10th of a price of a Mooncat right now. And it sort of hovers between a 10th and like a 30th, depending on what the floor for Mooncats is. And so the DAO, the Mooncat Pop DAO, has sort of some responsibility in terms of like communicating to us wants and needs. But in general, we want to empower community members. We talk a lot about like community heroes. For example, Cat Dad, Jake Allen, he actually just like decided to plow forward last year and be like, all right, I'm going to make a whole set of YouTube videos that are like explaining the various, nooks and crannies of the Mooncats ecosystem. What's a Mooncat Pop? What's a loot print? How do you acclimate? What's coming next? We've been on his show a couple of times to sort of give like 6-month check-ins. The other one that I feel like is fantastic to call out is Acid Man is one of our moderators. But on top of that, he actually spearheaded the World Wide Web Mooncats walk cycle along with Vinny, Zibzub, Control R, and I'm totally blanking on a name that I know belongs there, and someone's going to yell at me after the show for forgetting them. I'm sorry, whoever you are. I still love you. And so, this sort of team of community members banded together and were like, all right, we are going to make a walk cycle sprite sheet for Mooncats to use in the World Wide Web metaverse. And, they had us give some input, but really that was completely community run and a community sort of push to have that done, and that was awesome. They totally got it done. Acid Man also is one of the first people in the Mooncats community to really flex the commercial rights of their Mooncat. So if you own a Mooncat, you own both non-commercial and uncapped commercial rights for your Mooncats. So Acid Man set up the Mooncat store where he has sort of like this set of 5 rainbow Mooncats that he owns all 5 of them, and he's put them on merchandise. And you can go to his store, you can get Mooncat sweaters, you can get Mooncat beanies, you can get Mooncat shirts, and all of those is just his Mooncats on them.
Wow. So, yeah, so it's basically user created merch
Yes.
in that way.
Yep.
And I mean, both of you are wearing merch from the community as well. And
Yes.
I think that's one thing that I've talked about before, where you feel a little more connected when you have the shirt of something. I have this nifty slab here of this from the
Nice.
Penelope's Country Club, and it's one of those things where you're more likely to hold on to it. You're more likely to make it your profile picture, and you feel more of a real connection to it.
That's my Mooncat beanie.
Oh, you have a beanie too.
I do.
Yeah.
Not within reach at the moment. Yeah.
No.
Are Mooncats planning on being at, say, NFT NYC, or are there sort of IRL events that are
There we go.
planned?
We have been to one of the former NFT NYCs and did have a meetup there.
Mm,
And it's right now at the for conferences we mostly evaluate on the our our we are a small team, and yeah, are we able to have someone able to travel to it. We have done for the in-person events, yeah, having tangible things, yeah, we have seen is a great way to feel the reality of these digital things, even though yes, we know that the core canonical version of them are the digital versions. Yeah, having them as a tangible thing has been awesome as well. One of the key physical things that the Ponderware team created as well is the a huge wall tapestry, which we did bring to our the in-person event, which is a photograph of all 25,000 Mooncats in one frame. Which, of course, if you're trying to get a collection that large and still be able to visually distinguish all 25,000, it's 11 feet wide and 8
oh
feet
wow,
tall. And so, yes, it is a huge canvas
whole
print.
wall.
It is essentially, yeah, a photo wall. We have some great pictures of community members, taking their photos in front of it, being able to find, where their mooncat is amidst the sea of all the others, as we laid them all out in a nice gradient, according to their color and pattern, piece of it. But yes, being able to have the physical sense of grasping, what is the collection, and just the size of the collection, and seeing the community in a sense laid out before you, is a great feeling as well.
And
Wow.
that banner actually travels. So we had it
Oh,
with us at NFT NYC last year. We mailed it to Cat Dad, who's another community member who's done some Mooncat meetups in Vegas. It's actually going to be going from Vegas to LA very shortly for another Mooncats meetup. Run by a different community member. And then that banner is going to come back to us for NFT NYC in June.
wow. Cool. And then, is there anything else that's coming up that we haven't already touched on that you want to make sure we talked about today?
I think we touched on a couple of the projects that are in process, for those things. Yeah, as we're continuing to work, the key things that have been developing are some of the enhancements with Mooncats being able to relate to other collections and also to other applications. Ponderware, as it's positioned currently, as trying to be and finding this place as like halfway between the Web 2 world and the Web 3 world, we have found that through the growth over the last year of recognizing like how best can we be positioned, still being a traditional company, and representing those things of like even getting a bank account has been a large behind the scenes sort of a thing of what is a Web3 business supposed to be and able to interact with. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes just pieces there as a company we're working on. And part of that is being kind of a communication hub of, even though we have granted the commercial rights to individual Mooncat holders, where we can be useful is to be that communication hub of helping other projects that are wanting to interact and integrate be able to do so. And so some of the big ones, the Isotile and Web3 World Wide Web metaverses, we continue to have conversations with them as having Mooncats be represented in there, and being able to further enhance those, like the recent edition of the Walk Cycle, being able to keep doing things like that of make people's experiences of what they can do with their Mooncats bigger, as well as working with other NFT collections that make sense. As we've seen the accessory collections be able to highlight other featured collections. We've had a few other collections make themed accessories within the Mooncat ecosystem. And so, yeah, our future plans are we've been continuing to work with those, and also as a company figuring out which direction forward to go. One of the unique things about the original project launch, and as Ponderware has evolved, was that as you know from the Rediscovery, the original Mooncats were rescued for free. That there was no actual cut taken to the company or the development team for the initial rescue. And so part of it is also figuring out, what direction as a company we can continue to be viable with. A lot of we're both focused on being technically sound, but also creating very innovative things. And over the past year, we've created a bunch of things, and we're looking for, yeah, the different solutions of how to continue to do so, as Web3 is a brand new and exciting space, but also the path of what you're supposed to do as a Web3 company is not really set in stone yet
Yeah.
as like best practices, and we're still working our way forward with those.
And I think the interesting thing that's happening now is some of the stuff that we built last year, which had not initially excited everybody in the community, all of a sudden is being seen in new light in 2022, where all of a sudden um, lots of things are happening in the Web3 space that weren't before. So obviously, there's a lot of talk recently about ENS domains and like the official 10 Clay Club and stuff like that. Last year, one of the things that we did was we created a unique ENS domain that anybody who has a Mooncat can claim. So, for example, Brooks's main profile picture character cat is Mint ID 1289. So, if you want to interact with Brooks, 1289 dot is my mooncat.eth. And anybody who has a Mooncat can pull up their ismymooncat.eth ENS domain for free and point that at their wallet. And like there are people on our Discord and people on Twitter that like that is their actual display name on social media.
Um,
hmm
yeah,
And yeah,
that
and it had been ENS names have been available for many years, and people may have grabbed one that they is more personal to them. But also, as we're seeing the boom and rush
yeah,
of perhaps grabbing those names, if the name that you most desire may not be available, you do also have this option as well. That yes, it's if you want to show your appreciation or enthusiasm for Mooncats, that one's already been reserved and is available for you to grab. Yeah, as just for an
um,
activation.
yeah, and I think I'm actually working on an article right now because the 4 digits have all sold out. The 3 letters have now sold out, and it's sort of people are becoming more accustomed to ENS domains. And then I think that next level of the boom is going to be these subdomains, because I think as people want to be connected to communities, you can connect your specific ID within that subdomain, and then that's another way that someone's attached to that project and doesn't want to let go of that one, because
hmm
if you sell your NFT, there goes your ability to connect it to your wallet anymore. So
Yep.
I think that's definitely something that I expect to see at least in the next few months, now that ENS domains are sort of hot again. Um, and then pause. Let people know how they can become a part of the community, how they can get involved.
Sure. The fastest place to find the biggest chunk of our community is on Discord, discord.gg/mooncats. You can also follow Mooncat Rescue on Twitter. The Ponderware Twitter account is Mooncats, as well as other projects that Ponderware does. So you'll see references to Starcade, to Quest 3, to some of the other upcoming things that we have coming for a variety of projects. Um, and yeah, it's pretty much Twitter and Discord for us.
Cool. Yeah, and then obviously both of these are your names on Twitter. Is that correct, or are these just the Discord names?
So I'm Paws RPG on Twitter. That's actually my full Discord handle. I just tend to drop off
Okay.
the RPG when I'm not in video game spaces.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
last I checked, Midnight Lightning is too long for Twitter. It's one letter too long, I believe.
Oh.
I'm Midnight0426 on Twitter.
Oh,
There.
cool. Yeah, thanks for hopping on. I think this has been pretty good discussion. I've been following Mooncat since that day back in March last year, so it's definitely a project that I've sort of always had my eye on, because it's one of those historical ones. I my first NFT was a crypto kitty, so I've sort of
You
just
like the
always kept
cats.
that. Yeah, they're another one from like the way back when, and
Yep.
Mhm.
it's funny how a lot of them were cat based, which is neither here nor there. But yeah, it's cool. It's definitely a community that seemingly is pretty strong. So
And that was I had been asked the question of the past of yes, I was active in the time in 2017 when Mooncats launched, which was also the time when CryptoPunks were around. And the question of like, why did I not buy a CryptoPunk and why did I rescue Mooncats instead? Like, cats are cool. I went for
more fun.
at that
Yeah.
point I was like, the cats were more appealing to me as an art piece, as an interesting thing that was going on.
Yeah.
And it's funny because hindsight is always 2020. But I think the thing that's really interesting is one of the things that sort of led to that spark of rediscovery for Mooncats was this sort of post on a Crypto Kitties forum where someone said, I'm not interested in Crypto Kitties because this is too much like Mooncat Rescue.
Wow.
And that
So
ended up being one of the puzzle pieces that led people to rediscover Mooncats.
yeah. Interesting. Well, cool. I appreciate you guys hopping on. I know that obviously like I've had you guys like on my radar for a while as we've been trying to get someone like you on the show that has been around since 2017, because a lot of the projects that we work with now are either upcoming to mint or recently minted. So it's really cool to have a little more historic sort of interview here, and it's a little different of a perspective as well, a little more into sort of the tech side of things, which is somewhat becoming less important to some people. So it's cool to have people on who are still focused on the tech, because I think long-term thinking, you have to be pretty happy about the tech, because that's what's going to keep NFTs and just Ethereum in general, cryptocurrency, around for a while. So thanks for hopping on, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thank you.